The sun slowly sank behind the distant hills, casting long, soft shadows over the thatched rooftops of the village. Smoke curled gently from chimneys, drifting upward into the cool, quiet sky. Evening had come, and the villagers, one by one, began to slow their movements. The clatter of tools, the laughter of children, the songs of birds, all softened as if the world itself were taking a deep, long breath. Families would gather inside their simple homes, the warmth of the hearth wrapping around them like a gentle embrace. Mothers and fathers, tired from their daily work in the fields or the workshops, would prepare for the night in a slow, deliberate rhythm. Water was drawn from the wells in heavy wooden buckets, and the sound of splashing filled the small kitchens. Some would wash their hands and faces, the cool water tracing lines down their skin, washing away the dust and toil of the day. Others would comb their hair, the rhythm of fingers through the tangles a soothing, almost hypnotic motion. Candles were lit one by one. The flickering flames cast gentle shadows upon the walls, painting the rooms with soft, moving patterns. The golden light danced slowly, reflecting on the simple wooden furniture, the worn tapestries, and the clay vessels that held water, herbs, or simple foods. The smell of burning tallow filled the air, a quiet, earthy fragrance that spoke of warmth and comfort. In some homes, prayers were spoken softly, whispered words carried on the breath, repeated again and again, comforting the heart and settling the mind. The villagers believed in the power of these prayers to protect them through the night, to guide their dreams, and to keep them safe until morning. Even those who did not speak words would bow their heads and breathe deeply, the act of quiet reverence, of reflection, helping them transition from the wakeful world to the approaching rest. The evening meal, often humble, stew of vegetables and grains, perhaps a small portion of meat, was eaten slowly. Each bite was deliberate, chewed with care, and swallowed with gratitude. Conversation was calm and soft, voices lowered so as not to disturb the stillness that was settling over the village. Laughter, if it came, was gentle, lingering like a soft wind among the walls of the home. The evening was a time for connection, for presence, and for reflection. As the meal ended, candles burned lower, casting their last warm light across the faces of the villagers. The children were led to their straw, stuffed mattresses tucked beneath woolen blankets, while the adults lingered a moment longer by the fire. The quiet rhythm of breathing filled the rooms, and outside, the sounds of the night began to awaken, the soft rustle of leaves in the wind, the distant bark of a dog, the faint cry of an owl. All became companions to the villagers as they prepared to sleep. The evening rituals were more than routines. They were gentle guides, leading the people from the business of day to the peace of night. Every movement, every breath, every whispered word created a bridge between wakefulness and rest. And as the last candle flickered and went out, the villagers lay down in quiet anticipation of the deep, slow sleep that awaited them. Night was coming, night was near, and in that time the villagers found comfort, safety, and the first steps toward dreams yet to come. The villagers, after finishing their evening rituals, turned their attention to their beds. In the medieval world, beds were not merely places to sleep, they were sanctuaries, small islands of comfort in a world that was often cold, hard, and unpredictable. Each home had its own kind of bed, shaped by the wealth of the family, the materials available, and the care of those who made them. Most villagers slept on straw, stuffed mattresses, simple and practical. The straw was carefully packed, sometimes fresh, sometimes slightly softened by years of use. It smelled of earth, hay, and faint traces of herbs tucked into the layers. Some families sprinkled lavender, rosemary, or chamomile between the straw. believing these herbs would protect them from bad dreams and bring calm sleep. The villagers pressed their hands gently into the straw, feeling its uneven yet familiar texture. Each dip and rise was a comforting rhythm, a subtle reminder of the work that had gone into creating this humble bed. For wealthier families, beds were larger, with wooden frames carved in delicate patterns. Feather mattresses were rare and precious, soft as clouds, and the feathers whispered quietly as one shifted upon them. Heavy wool blankets covered these beds, thick and warm. Their coarse texture softened over time by repeated use. Some beds even had curtains, heavy cloths that hung around the frame, creating a small, enclosed space that felt safe and private. The curtains swayed slightly with the draft, and the villagers enjoyed the gentle motion, like a lullaby for the eyes. The act of preparing the bed was slow and deliberate. Blankets were spread carefully, tucked around the edges, folded to provide extra warmth where needed. Pillows, sometimes filled with straws, sometimes with down, were fluffed and shaped, pressed gently beneath heads. The villagers adjusted each layer, smoothing and patting, creating a nest like comfort that promised rest and dreams. They lingered over these motions, repeating them in the same way each night, each gesture part of the ritual of sleep. The room itself influenced the bed. Windows were shuttered to keep out the chill of night, and the walls, often thick with stone or wattle and daub, held warmth from the hearth. The floor was sometimes covered with rushes, straw, or simple rugs, absorbing the sounds of shifting bodies and creaking boards. Each element was part of a whole, a cocoon of calm in which the villagers could finally surrender to the slow descent to sleep. Many families shared their beds. Children slept with parents, younger siblings together, and even animals sometimes spaced at the foot of the bed. The warmth of bodies pressed together, the steady rhythm of breathing, created a symphony of comfort. Movement was slow and measured, careful not to disturb others, a quiet dance that concluded each day. The villagers understood the importance of comfort. Even small adjustments, folding a blanket, adding a pillow, or brushing straw from the mattress, were done with attention, with care. These moments were quiet, repeated, and familiar, reinforcing the gentle passage from wakefulness into the tender embrace of night. And as the villagers settled into their beds, the world outside continued its slow, calm rhythm. The wind whispered among the trees. Animals rustled softly in the distance. Occasionally, a bell tolled from a distant church tower, its sound gentle and even. Within the walls of each home, the villagers felt warmth, safety, and the first quiet stirrings of sleep. Beds were more than wood, straw, or feathers. They were heavens of rest. They were careful rituals of comfort. They were soft, warm spaces that invited the villagers to let go, to breathe slowly, and to drift gently into dreams. Night was now fully upon the village, and in these beds, the villagers lay still, ready to enter the first stage of sleep. As the villagers settled into their beds, the world outside whispered softly. Night stretched across the village like a dark, gentle blanket, and the air was cool and still. The sounds of the day had faded, leaving a soft symphony of night, each noise subtle, familiar, and soothing. The villagers listened with sleepy ears, their senses slowly attuning to the rhythm of darkness. From the edges of the village, the rustle of leaves could be heard. The wind moved through the trees, brushing branches together with a soft, whispering sound. It was a sound the villagers knew well, a sound that repeated night after night, year after year. Some found it comforting, imagining the trees breathing with them, moving gently as they rested. Others might have closed their eyes and drifted into thought, lulled by the repetitive motion of the leaves, the gentle sway of the branches. Animals stirred quietly in the night. A dog barked once in the distance, then paused, listening. The faint sound of hooves might come from a traveler passing outside the village, careful to tread softly. Cats moved silently among the rooftops, their small feet padding over thatch and stone. Every small noise, every distant cry, became part of the rhythm of nighttime, part of the chorus that accompanied the villagers as they prepared to sleep. Inside the homes, the smells of evening lingered. The aroma of last night's fire clung to the stone and wood, warm and comforting. Herbs tucked into corners or beneath mattresses released faint scents, lavender, rosemary, and chamomile mixing with the soft smell of straw. These fragrances were subtle, repeated each night, familiar and gentle, carrying reassurance and the promise of restful sleep. The villagers inhaled slowly, allowing the scents to fill their senses, their breathing slowing, their hearts calming with each passing moment. Occasionally, the distant toll of a church bell would reach the ears of the villagers. Its sound traveled through the quiet, soft and even, marking the passage of time, reminding them of the night's gentle rhythm. Some would listen, counting the strokes, finding peace in the predictable pattern, allowing the sound to ease them further into rest. Inside each home, small movements continued. A child shifted beneath blankets, a mother adjusted a pillow, a father pressed the straw mattress gently. These subtle motions were repeated softly, slowly, each movement part of the nightly ritual. Nothing was hurried, everything happened with care and attention. The villagers understood the importance of gentleness, of repetition, of slow, deliberate action. Outside, the world remained alive with quiet motion. A stream might murmur softly in the distance, water flowing over stones with a constant, calming rhythm. The wind carried the faint smell of earth and grass, mingling with the warmth of the hearth that lingered in the village homes. Every sound, every scent, every gentle movement created a world of comfort, a world in which the villagers could surrender to sleep. The repetition of these sounds and smells was soothing. The wind whispered again, leaves rustled. The distant bark repeated. A bell tolled softly. The scents of herbs filled the rooms. Every night was like this, every night a careful orchestration of quiet, gentle details that carried the villagers into sleep. And so, as the night deepened, the villagers listened, inhaled, and felt the rhythm of the world. Each sound, each scent, each gentle movement became a guide, leading them further away from wakefulness, further into the calm embrace of rest. Nighttime was no longer empty or silent. It was alive, alive with soft, comforting patterns. And within these patterns, the villagers found the first slow steps into dreams. As darkness fully settled over the villagers entered the first phase of their nightly rest. In the medieval world, sleep was not always a single, continuous stretch. Instead, it often came in two gentle waves, a pattern that the villagers knew well. The first sleep began soon after they lay in their beds, a slow descent into calm, a drifting away from the cares of the day. The first sleep was deep yet gentle, eyes closed, bodies relaxed, hearts beating in steady, slow rhythms. The villagers surrendered to the soft pull of rest, guided by the familiar smells, sounds, and textures of their homes. Some dreamed lightly, their thoughts wandering like quiet streams. Others rested in near silence, listening to the night's whispers, feeling the warmth of blankets and shared beds. After several hours, a quiet awakening would occur. This was the second phase, the waking period between sleeps, often called the watchful hour by some villagers. They did not rise hurriedly or in alarm. They moved slowly, carefully, letting their senses adjust to the dim light of the night. Candles, if needed, were lit softly, their flames flickering gently in the shadows. The air was cool, still, and heavy with calm. During this waking period, villagers might engage in quiet, deliberate tasks. Some folded blankets more neatly, adjusted the straw in their mattresses, or checked on children sleeping nearby. Others whispered prayers, repeated softly, again and again, the words flowing gently like a stream. A few might sit and reflect, contemplating the day that had passed, the work still to be done, or the dreams they hoped to have. Each motion, each breath, each word was slow, measured, and rhythmic, guiding them back into the calm of the night. The second sleep was not rushed. Villagers accepted it as a natural rhythm, a gentle pause between two waves of rest. They moved with care, aware of the quiet around them, respecting the stillness of the household. No harsh noises, no sudden movements. Only the gentle, repeated motions that had been practiced night after night, year after year. Once this period ended, the villagers returned to bed for the second sleep. They lay down slowly, adjusting pillows, smoothing blankets, and settling their bodies with care. The world outside remained quiet, the soft symphony of night resuming the rustle of leaves. The distant cry of animals, the whispering wind, the scents of herbs, straw, and lingering warmth wrapped around them once again, inviting calm and rest. During the second sleep, the villagers often drifted into deeper dreams. Some dreamed vividly, seeing places far away or remembering moments from the day. Others dreamed gently, the images fleeting, like shadows passing across the walls. The repetition of daily life, the slow rhythm of breath, the quiet patterns of the night, all worked together to cradle the villagers in the soft, nurturing arms of sleep. This divided sleep was more than habit. It was a part of life, a rhythm tied to the natural world. The villagers moved with the moon, the stars, and the soft passage of night. Their bodies, their minds, their hearts were in harmony with the world around them. And in this gentle, repeated pattern, sleep became not just rest, but a quiet journey, a calm voyage into dreams, guided by the careful rituals and soft rhythms of medieval life. Night carried on, steady and patient. The villagers lay still, breathing slowly, feeling the embrace of warmth, of quiet, of the repeated, soothing rhythms of life. In these hours between first sleep and second sleep, the world was gentle. In these hours, the villagers rested, recovered, and prepared to awaken once more with the soft light of morning. As the villagers sank deeper into their second sleep, dreams began to bloom like soft lights in the darkness. The medieval mind lived close to mystery, and dreams were not simply passing visions of the night. They were messages, signs, and reflections of unseen worlds. To dream was to wander between realms, where waking and sleeping touched hands, and the soul could travel quietly through shadows and light. Dreams came softly. They rose like mist from the edges of thought, shaping images of familiar faces, quiet fields running rivers, or flickering fires. A mother might dream of her child's laughter echoing in the sunlit yard. A farmer might dream of golden harvests, the sound of grain rustling in a soft wind. A pilgrim might see long roads stretching toward a glowing horizon. These were gentle dreams, born of daily life and warmed by hope. But sometimes dreams carried strange and powerful meanings. The villagers believed that in sleep the soul could wander, free unbound, closer to heaven or the hidden mysteries of the earth. They spoke quietly, never loudly, of dreams where angels whispered comfort or where shadows carried warnings. They believed that a dream of water might mean change, that a dream of fire could mean passion or danger, that to dream of a bird flying might mean news or travel or loss. Each morning when light returned, these dreams were remembered and spoken of in hushed tones. But in the quiet hours of night, when the world was still, they unfolded like stories told by the mind itself. The villagers did not fear them, they listened. They let the dreams pass through them. like wind through the trees, gentle and unhurried. Sometimes, when a villager woke in the watchful hour between the two sleeps, they would sit by the dim light of a candle and whisper a prayer, asking for good dreams to come or for troubling ones to fade. They might touch the small wooden cross above their bed or sprinkle a pinch of herbs on the floor, repeating the words they had learned from parents and grandparents long ago. These small rituals, simple, quiet, repeated, brought comfort. The villagers believed that kindness in the heart led to calm dreams, and that rest would come easily to a peaceful soul. Herbs were often placed near the bed for protection. Lavender, sweet and dry, was said to bring calm. Rosemary, with its sharp scent, was thought to keep away spirits. A branch of oak or a sprig of ivy might hang above the bed to guard against ill fortune. Each of these acts was part of the great rhythm of medieval sleep, a blending of faith, habit, and quiet superstition. Nothing was done quickly, every movement carried intention, every action carried meaning. Some dreamed of saints of faraway lands, of the heavens filled with stars. Some dreamed of their ancestors, standing in doorways or fields, watching silently, kindly. Others dreamed of great feasts, laughter, and joy. Dreams, whether bright or dim, carried the heartbeat of the village, the hope of rest, the wish for understanding, the comfort of knowing that even in sleep one was not alone. The night was long, but it was gentle within each home. The villagers lay still, breathing slowly, surrounded by warmth, scent, and silence. Their dreams rose and fell like tides, washing softly through their minds. They did not rush to wake, they drifted, surrendered, and listened to the quiet stories the night had to tell. And as the stars shone high above, their faint light falling over rooftops and fields, the villagers dreamed together, each in their own way, each guided by the same ancient rhythm of rest and renewal. For in the medieval world, sleep was never just sleep. It was a bridge between earth and spirit, between one day and the next, between the known and the mysterious. And through that bridge, each dream carried them gently, safely, toward the promise of morning. In the quiet homes of the medieval village, families slept close together. The night was not a time of separation, but of closeness, of warmth, of breath shared between generations. The rooms were small, and space was precious, but within those narrow walls lived comfort, trust, and the soft rhythm of family life. Children slept beside their parents, curled under thick wool blankets, their small bodies pressed against the warmth of those they loved. The crackling fire from the hearth would fade slowly, leaving only a red glow that painted soft light on their faces. Shadows moved gently across the walls, and the sound of slow, steady breathing filled the room like a lullaby. For the children, the world of night was safe. They listened to the same sounds every evening: the rustle of straw, the sigh of wind, the whisper of a parent's voice, and those sounds became familiar companions. Sometimes, before sleep, a mother would hum softly, her voice low and even, repeating the same tune that her own mother had once sung. The melody carried warmth, a thread of comfort stretching back through time, linking one generation to the next. Fathers, too, would whisper gentle words to their children, stories of saints, of travelers, of brave heroes from faraway lands. The tales unfolded slowly, one word after another, told not to excite but to soothe. The children would listen, their eyes heavy, their minds drifting between story and dream. Sometimes they would ask questions, their voices soft and sleepy, and the father would answer with patience, his tone as calm as the rhythm of the night itself. Siblings slept together, often side by side on shared straw mattresses. Their closeness was not only practical, it was comforting. In the dark, they could reach out and find a familiar hand, a familiar warmth. They learned to move carefully, to shift quietly, to respect the stillness of sleep. The older ones watched over the younger ones, listening to their breathing, comforting them if dreams turned uneasy. Families understood that night could hold both peace and mystery. Outside, the world was dark, and the sounds of distant animals or the wind might seem strange to a child. But within the home, surrounded by loved ones, the fear of darkness melted away. Parents reassured their children with gentle touches and whispered words. Sleep now. The night is kind. The stars are watching. These phrases were repeated softly again and again until the words themselves became part of the rhythm of breathing, part of the lull of night. The warmth of shared sleep was more than physical. It was emotional, spiritual, a symbol of togetherness. The villagers lived lives of hard labor, often marked by hunger, cold, and uncertainty. But in those night hours, pressed together beneath the same blanket, they found peace. They found belonging. They found the steady heartbeat of family, pulsing softly beneath layers of cloth and straw. In the winter months, when the air grew cold and the night stretched long, families drew even closer. The fire burned low, but the heat of bodies and the weight of blankets held the chill at bay. Sometimes, frost gathered on the edges of windows or the stone walls, but inside, the warmth of breath and love remained steady. In these moments, sleep felt sacred, a small miracle repeated each night. Mothers would wake briefly in the middle of the night to check on their little ones, adjusting blankets, brushing hair from small foreheads, listening for the sound of soft breathing. Then, reassured, they would close their eyes again, surrendering once more to rest. Fathers might stir and glance toward the window, noting the faint glow of moonlight, before sinking back into quiet dreams. The night was long, but it was gentle. Within those humble homes, surrounded by the whispering, dark families dreamed together. Their hearts beat in slow harmony. Their breath rose and fell like waves. The bond between them was silent but strong, woven from years of shared nights, shared warmth, and shared love. And when morning came, when the first gray light crept through the shutters and the roosters began to call, it was not a sudden awakening but a soft return. The children stirred first, stretching, blinking, whispering to one another. Parents smiled, still half asleep, their voices low and kind. The rhythm of day began anew, but the memory of the night's peace lingered, a quiet reminder of the comfort they shared and the gentle refuge that sleep had given them. The rhythm of medieval life followed the rhythm of the earth. The people of the villages lived by the turning of the seasons, by the rising and setting of the sun, by the warmth of summer and the chill of winter. Their sleep, too, changed with the passing months, flowing gently between long nights and short, between cold darkness and gentle warmth. In winter, the nights came early. The sun slipped below the horizon before the evening meal was finished, and the world grew still and silent beneath a sky of pale stars. Inside the homes, fires burned longer, and the villagers huddled close to their hearths. The air outside was sharp, biting, full of frost. The windows, small and thick, sometimes glazed with ice, kept the cold at bay. Inside, however, the rooms glowed with soft light, and the warmth of breath and flame filled the air. During these long, dark months, sleep stretched and deepened. The villagers went to bed early, sometimes not long after sunset, wrapped in layers of wool and fur. The cold made movement slow, deliberate. Each person found comfort in stillness, conserving heat beneath heavy blankets. Dreams came easily in the quiet of winter, and the night seemed endless, a vast sea of darkness through which the sleepers drifted gently, calmly. The pattern of divided sleep, first sleep and second sleep, felt natural in winter. The darkness seemed to welcome it, to cradle it. After the first hours of rest, Many would wake softly, light a candle, and sit in the stillness, listening to the wind outside or the faint creak of timbers in the cold. They might whisper prayers, mend small garments, or sit by the fading fire. The world was quiet. Time itself seemed to slow. Then, when the candle burned low, they would return to bed, nestling again into warmth, surrendering to the second wave of dreams. Spring brought change. The nights grew shorter, and the sounds of life returned to the air. Frogs croaked by the streams, birds called before dawn, and the scent of damp earth drifted through open shutters. The villagers rose earlier, drawn by the soft light of morning. Their sleep, still peaceful, became lighter, touched by the energy of renewal. The air no longer bit at the skin, it caressed it. And when the villagers lay down at night, they did so with a different kind of tiredness. The tiredness of planting, of rebuilding, of beginning again. In summer, the days stretched long and golden. The sun lingered late into the evening, casting warm light over the fields and cottages. The villagers worked hard in these months, and when night came, sleep felt like a gift. But it came later, for there was still light in the sky, still warmth in the air. Windows were left open to invite the faintest breeze, and the sounds of insects filled the night like a living song. Sleep was lighter, softer, sometimes broken by the heat, but still it came, steady and restoring. The first sleep and second sleep sometimes blended into one in the short, bright nights. Autumn arrived quietly, with the smell of wood smoke and fallen leaves. The villagers felt the earth cooling beneath their feet, the sun's warmth fading. It was a season of gathering and gratitude, of preparing for the long nights to come. Sleep too began to lengthen and again, growing deeper as the air cooled. The sounds of rain against roofs and the sighing of wind through bare branches lulled the villagers to rest. They slept knowing that winter was near, that the rhythm of the world was turning once more. Each season brought its own pattern, its own softness, its own rhythm. The villagers did not resist these changes, they accepted them. They slept longer in winter and shorter in summer. They woke with the dawn and rested with the dusk. The body followed the world, and the world guided the body. There was comfort in this harmony, in this steady, repeating cycle. Each year the same sounds, the same scents, the same shifts of light and dark returned. The villagers did not measure time by clocks or schedules, but by the quiet rhythm of nature itself. Their sleep was part of that rhythm, a slow, breathing dance with the turning earth. And so, as the seasons passed, winter to spring, spring to summer, summer to autumn, and back again, the villagers' dreams followed. The nights changed in length, in color, in sound, but always held the same calm essences, the peace of surrender, the warmth of belonging, the softness of rest beneath an ever-turning sky. In the stillness of medieval nights, while the villagers slept beneath their roofs of thatch and timber, another world remained awake, the world of the monasteries. Behind high stone walls, under cold stars, the monks lived by a rhythm older than memory, older even than the written word. Their sleep was not their own, it belonged to the hours of prayer, to the slow unfolding of devotion through the darkness and the dawn. The monastery was a place of silence. Its walls breathed quietness. Every sound, the scrape of sandals on stone, the faint rustle of a robe, the soft opening of a wooden door, seemed magnified, sacred. The monks rose and slept according to the canonical hours, the holy rhythm that divided day and night into moments of prayer. When the world outside was deep in its first sleep, the monks were called to matins, the night office. A single bell rang through the dark, slow, heavy, echoing. One by one, the brothers stirred in their narrow cells, eyes still heavy with dreams. The air was cold. Their breath hung in faint clouds as they moved. They lit small lamps, their flames trembling like living thoughts, and walked in quiet procession through the corridors. In the chapel, the air smelled of wax and stone. The candles flickered, throwing long shadows across the faces of saints carved in wood and marble. The monks took their places, their voices joining in low, rhythmic chant, not hurried, not loud, but steady, like the breathing of the earth. Domi labia mea apris. Lord, open my lips. The chant rose and fell like the tide. The hours of prayer marked the passing of the night, and the monk's sleep wove itself between them. They did not sleep long, but they slept deeply, as those who have found peace often do. After matins came Lot sung near dawn. The sky outside began to pale, the first hint of light touching the cold stones of the cloister. Birds stirred in the eaves, and the sound of their wings mixed with the chanting voices. The brothers bowed, prayed, and then, when the prayers were done, returned to their cells for brief rest before the day began. Their sleep came in fragments, short, purposeful, woven between prayer and labor. Yet it was enough. For the monks, sleep was not escape but preparation, a quiet place between prayers, a pause in service to God. When the sun rose, the rhythm continued. Prime, terce, sext, none, vespers, compline, each hour a moment to stop, to breathe, to remember. The day was not ruled by hunger or fatigue, but by devotion. Even when exhaustion touched them, the monks accepted it gently as they accepted hunger, cold, or silence. It was part of the path, part of the rhythm. At night, when the last bell of compliance sounded, the monastery fell into deep quiet once more. The corridors grew dim, the lamps flickered out one by one. The brothers returned to their narrow beds, their hands folded over their chests. The air was cool, still heavy with peace. In the faint light of the moon, the monastery seemed to breathe. The walls, the cloisters, the gardens, all held the same calm pulse, the same sense of timeless waiting. The monks slept briefly, knowing the bell would soon call them again. And when it did, they would rise without complaint, stepping into the cold darkness with the patience of stone. Their sleep, though short, was full of stillness, the kind of stillness that the outside world rarely knew. It was the sleep of surrender not only to rest, but to rhythm, to purpose, to eternity. Each night was not a separation from prayer, but a continuation of it. Sometimes, when the moon was bright, a monk would wake before the bell. He would sit by the small window of his cell, looking out across the dark fields, seeing nothing but shadows and silver light. He would listen to the wind, to the silence, to the faint breath of the sleeping brothers, and he would feel peace. The kind of peace that does not depend on sleep or waking, but simply is. And when the bell rang again, he would rise, light his lamp, and walk once more through the silent halls toward the chapel. The rhythm would begin anew, night after night, year after year, a lifetime measured not in hours of sleep, but in moments of prayer and quiet devotion. Nightfall in a medieval village came softly, like a gentle hand drawing a curtain over the world. The fields darkened first, the gold of wheat and hay turning to silver beneath the growing moon. Then the paths, the fences, the wells, all sank into shadow. Smoke rose from low chimneys and drifted upward, thin and pale against the deepening sky. The people of the village felt the coming of night not as an ending, but as a settling. The air grew still, the tools were put away, and the last animals were led into their pens. The sound of voices, once full of work and laughter, softened into murmurs. Somewhere, a dog barked once, then fell silent. The day, with all its noise and labor, exhaled its final breath. Inside the cottages, the glow of hearths lit the faces of families gathered close. The flicker of fire played upon rough walls, upon wooden bowls, upon the calm eyes of those who had finished another day's toil. The smell of baked bread lingered. A pot of stew cooled slowly by the coals. Children, heavy with sleep, leaned against their mothers, their eyelids fluttering like small wings before closing. It was in these hours between the end of labor and the beginning of dreams that the village felt most alive in its quiet. The talk was low, the laughter gentle, the rhythm of the fire steady. The fathers mended a strap or sharpened a knife. The mothers hummed old songs, songs without beginning or end, passed down through countless winters. And then, one by one, the fires burned low. The children were carried to their straw-filled beds, wrapped in coarse wool and love. The doors were bolted, not out of fear, but out of habit. Outside, the village exhaled a long, peaceful sigh. In one cottage, a young boy lay awake for a while, staring at the rafters above. The fire's last glow painted thin lines of red along the wood. He listened to the night, the faint wind in the trees, the soft breathing of his family, the distant call of an owl. It was not silence, but a kind of music, a music that never hurried. Slowly, his eyes grew heavy, and he drifted away. In another home, an old woman sat by the embers, whispering prayers for those she had lost and those she still loved. Her fingers traced the smooth beads of her rosary, her voice no louder than the crackle of the dying fire. When she finally rose, her joints stiff and slow, she smiled to herself and whispered, "Tomorrow, if God wills," before lying down beside her sleeping daughter. Outside, the night deepened. The moon climbed higher, bathing the village in pale silver. The thatched roof shimmered faintly, the well stones glistened with dew. The dogs curled into themselves, their tails warm against their noses. Even the oxen, huge and patient, slept standing in the dark, their breath rising like smoke in the cold air. Now and then, a sound stirred, shutter creaking, a rooster dreaming of dawn. But the stillness always returned, deeper than before. The stars hung low, bright and close, as if they too were watching over the village. It was in these hours that dreams began to flow through the sleeping minds. Dreams of the harvest to come, of the lost, of the unborn, of things once seen and long forgotten. Dreams were not private, they seemed to drift from one sleeper to another, carried on the quiet breath of night. Somewhere a midwife slept lightly, always ready for the knock that could come at any hour. Somewhere else, a shepherd dreamed of his flock, counting sheep even as he slept. And far away, in the monastery beyond the hills, a bell rang faintly. Its echo carried on the wind, a reminder that others were awake, praying for the world. The village slept on, wrapped in the gentle weight of darkness. The air smelled of earth and ash and distant rain. Time itself seemed to slow, to stretch. The stars turned above like a slow wheel, and the night passed with quiet grace. Then, as the horizon began to pale, the roosters crowed. The first hint of dawn touched the roofs. Smoke began to rise once more from the chimneys. A door opened, a child stirred, a cow lowed softly. The world began again. The villagers rose as if pulled gently from the arms of sleep. They did not rush. They moved with the same rhythm that had carried them through the night. They washed their faces in cold water, rekindled the fires, and stepped into the soft morning light. Sleep for them was not something to be conquered or measured. It was part of the earth's turning, part of the body's song, part of the life they shared with sky and soil. And as each night came again, they welcomed it, as they welcomed the rain, the sun, the seed, and the harvest. In the stillness of the medieval night, dreams were not just shadows of the mind, they were doors. Quiet, unseen doors, opening into places where the divine and the earthly touched. The people of those centuries believed that sleep was not an escape, but a passage. When the eyes closed, another world began. To dream was to listen, to dream was to receive. And so, The people slept with hearts open, as though the night itself might whisper secrets into their souls. They believed that dreams came from many sources. Some were sent by God as messages wrapped in mystery. Some were the work of angels gentle and bright. Others darker were from born demons or wandering spirits that drifted through the cold air after midnight. And some dreams, they said, came simply from a heavy meal or a troubled heart. Each dream had meaning. Each symbol, each vision was a kind of language, one the waking mind could only partly understand. A woman dreaming of water might wake believing that change was near. A farmer dreaming of fire might fear the loss of his crop. A monk dreaming of light might rise in awe, whispering prayers of thanks. There were those who claimed to read the language of dreams. In the villages, old women, midwives, and healers often held this gift. People came to them quietly at dawn to share what they had seen in sleep. The dream reader would listen, her eyes half closed, her fingers tracing the air as if following unseen lines. She would nod, slowly, perhaps smile, perhaps frown, then say, "It was not the dream that spoke to you, but the thing behind it bought," and the listener would leave with both comfort and wonder, unsure whether to believe, yet unable not to. Even in monasteries, where learning and scripture ruled, dreams were not dismissed. The monks wrote them down in careful Latin, filling the margins of their books with quiet notes. They believed that God could speak through sleep as he spoke through light, or wind, or the written word. Saints were said to receive visions in their rest, radiant figures, burning symbols, voices that spoke without sound. These dreams were treated not as fantasies, but as fragments of eternity seen through the veil of night. Yet not all dreams were gentle. There were darker visitations. The medieval sleeper sometimes felt the weight of something unseen pressing upon his chest, the old fear of the nightmare. They called it the Mara, or the succubus, or the night hag. To them, it was not a trick of the body or mind, but a real spirit sitting upon the chest, stealing breath and peace. People spoke of waking unable to move, their hearts pounding, their minds full of shadow. Prayers, charms, and small crosses hung above the bed to keep such darkness away. Still, for all their fears, the people of the Middle Ages cherished the dream world. It was part of their faith, their imagination, their daily life. In a world without artificial light, the boundary between sleep and waking was softer, more fluid. The stars and the candles, the silence and the chanting bells, all blurred the edges of reality until dreams and life seemed to share the same quiet air. In the deep of night, when all fires had burned low, a peasant might dream of a green field aglow with impossible light. He would wake with tears on his face, feeling he had seen heaven. A mother might dream of her lost child, smiling in a meadow of lilies, and wake with both sorrow and peace. A monk might dream of the Virgin speaking his name, and his faith would burn brighter for the rest of his days. The medieval dream was not only a private mystery, it was shared, retold, woven into story. At the morning meal, the villagers might speak of what they had seen in the night. They told their dreams as others told their prayers, softly, reverently, as if speaking might keep them alive a little longer. Sometimes the dreams became tales, and the tales became belief. Thus legends were born, of saints, of miracles, of prophecies that began in sleep. To sleep was to enter the unknown. To dream was to touch the edge of eternity. And so they slept not with fear, but with awe. For in the darkness the soul might meet what the eyes could not see. When dawn came and the cocks began to crow, the dreams faded like mist over the fields. But the feeling remained, the quiet wonder, the sense that the night had held something sacred. And each sleeper, waking to the cool light of morning, carried a small fragment of that mystery within them. As darkness deepened over the medieval village, a different kind of attention stirred in the hearts of its people. Sleep brought rest, warmth, and dreams, yet it also carried whispers of fear, shadows that clung to corners, and the memory of old stories passed down from generations. Night was both gentle and mysterious, a time when the unseen seemed to brush softly against the edge of consciousness. The villagers feared many things in the night. Not all were tangible, not all were loud, but each was real in the quiet world of sleep. There were stories of spirits wandering through fields, invisible but watching, carrying the memory of the dead. There were tales of witches, casting spells under the pale light of the moon, moving silently among cottages to bring misfortune or mischief. Even the wind was not always trusted. A sudden gust might be the breath of some unseen creature, sweeping along with quiet menace. Within the homes, small rituals were repeated night after night quietly, almost without thought. A mother might sprinkle salt in the corners of her room, believing it would keep spirits away. A father might place a small cross above the bed or hang a sprig of rosemary near the window, each movement deliberate and slow, repeated in the same way every evening. These actions were comforting. They created the illusion of control in a world where much was unknown. Doors and shutters were fastened carefully. Windows were covered to keep out more than just cold air. The villagers imagined that darkness could seep through glass and stone if left unguarded. Animals, too, played a role in the safety of the night. Cats were thought to see spirits and warn of unseen dangers. Dogs, curled at the foot of beds, were believed to guard against misfortune. Every small act, every careful placement of object or animal, was part of a larger rhythm designed to ensure peace and protection during the night hours. Despite these precautions, fear lingered softly, like the chill of wind slipping through a crack. Children were told stories that served as warnings, stories of spirits that might steal them if they strayed too far from the hearth, of shadowy figures that moved just beyond sight. These tales were told quietly, not to terrify, but to teach vigilance. And, and yet, in the telling, the imagination stirred, and the child's heart beat faster even as sleep approached. Even adults, experienced and wise, sometimes felt the pressure of unseen eyes in the darkness. They listened to the sounds of creaking timber and distant animals with careful attention. A sudden cough of an ox, the flutter of a bird, the sigh of wind in the trees. All were magnified in the quiet of night. The imagination filled gaps, creating stories, threats, and shapes that were never fully seen but always felt. Superstitions became guides. A person might place a stone under the pillow to ward off nightmares. A string might be tied around the wrist to keep away evil spirits. Herbs, sprinkled along the windowsill, were believed to invite protection while the sleeper rested. Each repetition, each careful action created a sense of safety, a rhythm that reassured the heart even as the mind wandered through shadows. In the monastery, the monks understood fear differently. Their fears were tempered by ritual, by the discipline of prayer and chant. The darkness was not threatening, but sacred, a time to remain vigilant in mind and spirit. Even so, the quiet night, the distant howl of a wolf, or the sudden crash of a branch could stir reflection on the fragility of life, the presence of the divine, and the thin line between safety and danger. Yet fear in the night was never the same as terror. It was a measured quiet fear, like the shadow of a tree moving in the moonlight. It was part of life, part of the rhythm of living closely with the natural and supernatural world. The villagers did not flee it, they acknowledged it, they lived with it, they slept with it, and through careful rituals, repeated softly and slowly, they turned fear into a companion, guiding them into the calm of eventual sleep. Outside, the village remained peaceful. The wind rustled softly. Distant animals settled in their pens, and the moonlight traced thin silver lines across the thatched roofs. The fears of the night, whispered through stories and rituals, were held gently, never overwhelming. Sleep came again slowly, carrying dreams, rest, and a quiet knowledge that the night, though full of unknowns, was also full of care, rhythm, and enduring patterns. Night after night, the villagers faced the same fears, repeated the same rituals, and surrendered to the same rhythms. Through these cycles, they learned a quiet truth that fear, when acknowledged and met with care, could coexist with peace. And so, as the first soft light of dawn approached, their hearts remained steady, their minds calm, and their bodies ready to awaken once more, wrapped in the enduring cycle of night and day. The night slowly surrendered to the first light of morning. The horizon, faint and pale, began to glow softly, brushing gold and silver across the rooftops of the village. The chill of night lingered in the air, but a gentle warmth hinted at the rising sun. Sleep, deep and steady, began to ebb as the villagers stirred quietly in their beds. In one cottage, a mother blinked slowly, lifting her head from the straw mattress. Her children, still curled under blankets, murmured softly in dreams. She watched them for a moment, feeling the soft rhythm of breath and heartbeat, a quiet music that marked the passage of night into day. The fire, long diminished, was rekindled with gentle care, smoke curling lazily toward the low ceiling. Fathers rose slowly, stretching their arms and legs, letting the stiffness of sleep ease with deliberate movements. Some went to the windows to observe the first light. The fields beyond were silver with dew, the mist rising gently from streams and ponds. The village was still, almost sacred in its calm. The day had not yet begun, but life was returning softly in its own rhythm. Children awoke gradually, blinking at the light filtering through shutters and doors. Their movements were careful, sleepy, deliberate. A soft giggle here, a whispered question there, a small yawn, a slow stretch. The air smelled of straw, smoke, and earth, comforting and familiar. The sound of low voices, speaking in gentle tones, filled the spaces between walls, blending with the soft creaks of timber and the occasional call of a distant rooster. In the village streets, early risers moved with measured steps. Water was drawn from the well. Fires were prepared for the day's first meals. Animals were led from their pens, their breath visible in the cool morning air. The rhythm was slow, unhurried, as though the world itself was stretching after a long sleep. The church bell, soft and clear, rang in the distance. Its notes traveled across the fields, over fences, and into cottages. Some villagers paused in response, hands folded, eyes lowered in quiet reverence. Others continued their tasks, the bell a gentle reminder of both sacred time and the daily rhythm that governed their lives. Breakfast was simple and calm, bread, cheese, perhaps a small portion of warm stew. Families ate together slowly, sharing small words and smiles. Conversations were soft, measured, echoing the stillness of the morning. The world outside awaited, but inside the cottages, a sense of calm lingered, a final trace of night's peace before the bustle of day began. The awakening was not sudden. It was a gentle unfolding, a slow return from dreams to the tangible world. Hands and feet adjusted, voices found their steady tone, eyes accustomed to light. Sleep softness receded, leaving behind the warmth of blankets, the glow of hearths, and the quiet reassurance of family. Even as the village came fully to life, the memory of night remained. The rituals of sleep, the rhythm of divided rest, the dreams, the prayers, and the gentle fear, all lingered like soft shadows, shaping the start of the day. Each villager carried a small piece of the night within them, a fragment of calm that guided their steps and words until the next evening. And in the fields, the cottages, the pens, and the streets, life resumed with steady rhythm, slow and deliberate, as it always had. The medieval world began again, rooted in the cycles of earth, sky, and human habit. Morning had arrived, not abruptly, but with patient grace, marking end of one's sleep and the beginning of another day, full of labor, laughter, and gentle anticipation for the return of night. The village moved not only with the passage of night into day, but also with the quiet rhythm of the seasons. Sleep in the medieval world was shaped by sun, wind, temperature, and the ever changing light. Each season brought subtle adjustments, altering the ways people rested and awakened, guiding them gently through the year. In winter, when the nights stretched long and the cold seeped through doors and cracks, the villagers slept deeply. Their first sleep came early, soon after the final meal, their bodies seeking warmth by layers of wool and straw. Fires burned longer, embers glowing like tiny suns, and the rhythm of rest was extended. The second sleep often arrived in the early hours, after a brief waking in the middle of the night. During this quiet period, some rose to tend the fire, whisper prayers, or simply sit in the stillness, listening to the wind moan through the eaves. Spring shifted the balance. The days lengthened, the sun climbed higher, and warmth returned to the fields and homes. Sleep became lighter, rising and falling with the soft chorus of birds and the early stirrings of farm animals. The villagers woke earlier, drawn by sunlight spilling through windows and the gentle hum of life outside. Naps were rare, but rest was refreshed each night, aided by the soothing hum of life returning to the land. Summer brought long, golden days, and sleep adapted to the heat and the light. Windows were opened to invite cool breezes, and the air carried the scent of grass, flowers, and distant wood smoke. Night arrived later, and villagers often delayed sleep, lingering by the fire or walking the village paths. The heat sometimes disturbed rest, yet the rhythm of divided sleep persisted for those accustomed to it. Dreams were lighter, more vivid, and filled with images of work in the sun, harvests in the fields, and playful moments of leisure. Autumn was a season of preparation and reflection. The nights grew longer, the air cooled, and sleep deepened once again. Villagers rested early, their bodies weary from gathering crops and storing supplies for winter. Fires glowed warmly in the hearths, casting comforting light and shadows. Blankets were thickened, and homes were tidy, all in preparation for the season of long nights. Dreams returned to a slower, more measured pace, mirroring the fading sun and the gentle quiet of falling leaves. Throughout the year, adjustments were not only guided by light and temperature, but also by the needs of work and the rhythms of community. The monks, bound to their prayers, and the villagers, tied to their fields and animals, both adapted to seasonal changes naturally. There was no rush, each change was gradual, a subtle weaving of body, mind, and environment. Sleep followed the sun, the stars, and the rhythm of life itself. These adjustments were deeply intertwined with the rituals of daily life. Meals were timed with daylight, chores were completed according to the season, and bedtime routines shifted accordingly. Children learned to rise with the sun and sleep with the moon, guided by the example of their elders. Parents adjusted blankets, windows, and fires according to the weather. Every household, in its own small way, followed the quiet pulse of nature. Even the timing of the first and second sleep shifted with the seasons. In winter, the long nights allowed for a clearer separation, while in summer, the brief darkness often merged the sleeps into one continuous rest. And yet, no matter the season, the villagers made their intimate connection with the natural world. Sleep was never forced, It was invited, allowed, and respected, a gentle companion to the rhythms of earth, sky, and life. Through these seasonal adjustments, the medieval world learned patience. Life was not hurried, rest was honored. Dreams were embraced, and through every change of sun, wind, and temperature, the village moved gracefully, guided by quiet wisdom, enduring patterns, and the enduring cycle of night and day. In the medieval village, life followed a steady, unhurried rhythm, and sleep was an integral part of that pattern. Work and rest were intertwined, each shaping the other, each necessary for the body, mind, and spirit. Villagers rose with the sun and rested with the moon, guided not by clocks, but by the quiet pulse of nature. Before dawn, the village was a place of soft sounds and gentle movement. Farmers stirred quietly, careful not to disturb those still wrapped in blankets. The air was cool, often damp with morning mist, and the faint smell of earth and wood smoke drifted from the cottages. Livestock were tended first. Cows led to pasture, chickens gathered from their coops, horses saddled for early labor. Each movement was deliberate, a slow choreography learned from years of repetition. After tending the animals, the villagers began the day's work. Fields were plowed, seeds were sown, vegetables harvested, wood chopped. Women carried water, baked bread, and repaired clothing. The labor was hard, yet measured, punctuated by brief pauses to rest, sip cool water, or observe the slow changes of sunlight. The rhythm of work followed the rhythm of life, the rising and falling of the body, the tilt of the sun, the whisper of the wind. When the day reached its peak and the sun blazed high in the sky, work slowed. The villagers rested briefly, finding shade beneath trees, leaning against walls, or returning home for a simple meal. These pauses were sacred moments of reprieve, a chance for the body to recover and the mind to breathe. The rhythm of work and rest was continuous, a natural ebb and flow, as familiar and necessary as the tides. As afternoon faded into evening, the pace shifted again. Animals were returned to their pens, tools were put away, and the fire was prepared for the evening meal. Shadows stretched long across the fields and streets, signaling the approach of night. The villagers moved with a gentle awareness of the approaching darkness, knowing that rest and sleep would soon follow the labor of the day. The evening was a time for family, for quiet chores, for reflection. Children played briefly near the cottages, their laughter soft in the fading light. Parents completed small tasks, tending gardens, mending tools, or preparing clothing. Meals were shared, simple but nourishing, often accompanied by the quiet conversation of those who had worked together through the day. Once the fire had burned low and the tasks were finished, the villagers retreated to their beds. Sleep came naturally as a continuation of the rhythm established by work. Bodies tired from labor welcomed rest, and minds, soothed by the completion of daily tasks, drifted easily into dreams. The first sleep enveloped them in warmth and calm, a gentle reward for the labors of the sunlit hours. For those accustomed to the divided sleep pattern, a brief waking in the middle of the night offered another opportunity. Some rose to tend the fire, sip water, or whisper prayers. Some sat quietly, listening to the night sounds, the rustle of animals, the wind through the trees, the faint echo of a distant river. Then, with patience, they returned to their beds, embracing the second sleep with the same calm rhythm. Monks and villagers alike followed a similar pattern, though in different forms. The monks balanced prayer and work, tending the monastery's gardens, copying texts, and performing duties that required care and attention. Their sleep, divided and punctuated by the hours of prayer, mirrored the villagers' balance of labor and rest, both worlds guided by the steady, enduring rhythm of life itself. Through the years, this pattern created harmony, Work was never rushed. Rest was never denied. The villagers learned to listen to their bodies, to honor the slow rhythms of nature, and to align their lives with the cycles of day and night. Sleep was not merely recovery, it was a sacred part of existence, a companion to labor, a quiet thread woven into the fabric of life. Even in the darkest nights of winter, when work was reduced by cold and snow, the rhythm persisted. Tasks were adapted, shortened, or moved indoors, but the balance of effort and rest remained. The villagers slept longer, and their dreams deepened, reflecting the slower pace of life and the quiet wisdom of patience. Through all seasons, through labor and rest, the rhythm of work and sleep guided the village. It was gentle, steady, and unhurried, a rhythm that connected the body to the earth, the family to the household, and the individual to the world around them. And when the sun rose again, the villagers would awaken with ease, ready to follow the pattern once more, moving seamlessly from labor to rest, and from day into the welcoming embrace of night. Winter in the medieval world was a time of stillness and quiet, a season when nights stretched long and cold, and the rhythm of life slowed beneath the weight of frost. The village slept beneath blankets of snow and ice, the air sharp and clear, carrying the faint scent of wood smoke and frozen earth. Every cottage glowed softly from the hearth, a small sun in a world of shadow and frost. The villagers prepared carefully for these long nights. Fires were tended more often, logs stacked high, kindling kept close at hand. Blankets, furs, and woven fabrics thickened the beds, creating warm nests against the chill that seeped through walls and windows. Children, often restless, were comforted by the steady glow of embers and the gentle hum of their parents' voices, repeating soft prayers or familiar lullabies. Sleep in winter was deep and extended. The first sleep began soon after the final evening meal, sometimes not long after the sun had set. Bodies, cooled by the bitter air outside, sank into warmth with relief. The darkness outside encouraged a calm surrender, allowing minds to drift slowly into dreams. The hours of the night felt longer in winter, not only because the sun set early, but because the world itself seemed to stretch and breathe beneath a heavy blanket of cold. Every sound, the crackle of fire, the sighing of the wind, the distant howl of a wolf, became part of the rhythm of rest. These noises, once small disturbances, were absorbed into the quiet pulse of night, blending seamlessly with the gentle breathing of sleepers. Some villagers practiced the pattern of first sleep and second sleep, rising briefly in the middle of the long night. In these hours, they might stoke the fire, drink warm water, whisper prayers, or simply sit in silence, listening to the world. The long night was a companion, and this quiet awakening offered reflection, calm, and a sense of connection to the rhythm of nature. Children often awoke more frequently during these long nights, their small bodies sensitive to cold and hunger. Parents responded with gentle care, adding blankets, whispering soothing words, or offering a sip of warm milk. Even in their brief wakefulness, the rhythm of winter guided them, teaching patience, stillness, and the quiet art of returning to rest. The monks in the monasteries experienced winter nights with the same long, measured awareness. Their prayers continued as always, punctuating the hours, but the cold and darkness made the rhythm of night even more pronounced. Candles burned slowly, smoke curling in quiet spirals, and the chill of stone floors sharpened every movement. Sleep between offices was brief yet deep, carrying the body and spirit through the long hours until matins called them once more. Outside the village, the landscape slept as well. Trees bowed under the weight of frost and snow. Streams were quiet beneath ice, and the ground itself seemed to hold its breath. The villagers, in their warm cottages, felt the protective stillness of nature, a companion that encouraged patience and deep rest. Winter nights also inspired dreams unlike those of other seasons. Dreams were slower, heavier, sometimes brighter against the long darkness. They carried images of fires, family, food, and the coming spring. Even the fearful dreams, shadows, spirits, or distant threats, were softened by the deep calm of winter, absorbed into the rhythm of night without breaking the continuity of rest. When the final hours of night approached, the light of the distant sun hinted at the coming dawn. Fires burned low, embers glowing like small stars. Sleep began to ease, the villagers gradually stirring, bodies and minds adjusting to the approaching day. The long night had passed, carrying them through hours of calm, reflection, and dreams, preparing once again for the labor life and rhythms of the waking world. In winter, sleep was more than rest. It was endurance, comfort, ritual, and connection. It was the slow, quiet dance with the darkness, the surrender to cold and calm, and the gentle promise of the sun's return. Night after night, week after week, the villagers trusted the rhythm of winter, finding peace in the long slumbers that carried them safely into the coming day. With the first warmth of spring, the medieval village stirred in quiet, measured anticipation. The long, cold nights of winter had passed, and the days began to stretch gently, inviting light, warmth, and movement. Sleep adjusted once more, following the rhythms of the changing season, as the world itself seemed to awaken alongside the villagers. The air grew soft with the scent of thawing earth and budding flowers. Streams freed from ice sang low songs as they wound through fields and forests. Birds returned, their calls carrying a delicate music across the village rooftops. The villagers felt these subtle changes in their bones and hearts, and their sleep responded accordingly, lighter, more fragmented, yet filled with the vibrant promise of growth. Children awoke earlier, their eyes bright and curious, and laughter spilled from cottages as they chased each other, fields glistening with morning dew. Even in sleep, they dreamed differently of green meadows, running animals, and the warmth of sun on skin. Winter's heaviness had faded, replaced by a rhythm more playful, more attuned to movement and life. Adults, too, adapted to the season. Farmers tended the freshly dug fields, planting seeds and preparing soil, while the rhythm of labor and rest shifted to match the new light. Sleep came later in the evening, often delayed by the lingering glow of sunlight and the energy carried in the air. The first sleep remained, but the middle, night waking grew shorter, as warmth and light encouraged continuity in rest and activity. The fires, though still tended, burned less fiercely and blankets were thinner. The chill of night, once biting, now offered gentle coolness, a comforting balance to the growing warmth of the day. Windows were open to invite fresh air, carrying the scent of new blooms and freshly turned earth into cottages. The soundscape of night changed as well. The wind softened, animals stirred gently, and distant rivers whispered more softly. Dreams reflected this renewal. Villagers imagined growth, abundance, and freedom. Farmers saw crops sprouting in endless fields. Mothers dreamed of children laughing in sun-drenched meadows. Monks walking quietly through their cloisters experienced visions of light, flowers, and renewed devotion. Even the faint worries of winter, cold, scarcity shadowed fears, were softened by the persistent promise of spring. The rhythm of prayer and work in monasteries adjusted subtly as well. Longer daylight allowed the monks to extend their labor in gardens, tending herbs and vegetables needed for the coming months. Their sleep, still punctuated by the canonical hours, carried a lighter, more flowing quality. The quiet wakefulness of the night was brief, sometimes spent observing the changing sky or listening to the gentle return of birdsong, marking the subtle arrival of life anew. Villagers also embraced ritual, small acts of renewal interwoven with sleep. Windows were opened wide to let the fresh air in. Wells were cleaned, hearths scrubbed, and homes tidied after winter's stagnation. Even sleep itself became a ritual of renewal, a time to shed the heaviness of cold nights and prepare for the energy of the day. With each sunrise, the village moved with new vitality. The rhythm of waking and sleeping, labor and rest, mirrored the cycles of planting, growth, and preparation. Sleep was not merely restoration, it was an attunement to life's unfolding, a gentle participation in the renewal of the earth and the community. By mid morning, the village was alive with movement. Children played and laughed, adults worked with steadier energy, and even animals seemed to rejoice in the returning warmth. And yet the memory of night, of sleep and dreams remained, a quiet thread connecting the renewed day to the rest, reflection, and calm of darkness. Spring taught patience, resilience, and attunement. Sleep was lighter but no less essential, carrying with it the promise of growth and vitality. Night and day, labor and rest, dreams and wakefulness, all moved together in delicate harmony. And as the villagers slept each night, they carried with them the quiet awareness that the rhythm of life was continuous, ever renewing, and intimately bound to the cycles of earth, sun, and sky. Summer arrived with warmth and light, stretching the days and shortening the nights. In the medieval village, the rhythm of sleep shifted once again, adapting to heat, longer daylight, and the energy of life at its peak. Nights became restless, not in fear, but in response to the lingering sun and the vibrant activity of the season. The air carried the scent of ripening grain, flowers in bloom, and the subtle perfume of herbs and hay. Winds were gentle but warm, brushing against the faces of those who lay awake in their beds. Windows were propped open, doors left slightly ajar, all in an effort to invite cool air into cottages made heavy with summer heat. Even the animals seemed to sense the change. Dogs stretched lazily on cool floors. Cows sought shaded areas, and chickens moved quietly under the long shadows of evening. Sleep came slowly. The first sleep, once early and deep, was delayed by the glow of lingering daylight bodies. Accustomed to warmth, shifted restlessly beneath blankets, seeking comfort on wooden floors or thin mats. Dreams were vivid, filled with images of sunlight, fields, harvests, and water flowing through streams and wells. The heat brought a sense of motion even in stillness, and the villagers moved within their sleep, turning, stretching, adjusting, finding moments of cool relief. During the middle of the night, the brief waking period became more pronounced. Some rose to fetch water from the well, or to carry a small cloth to mop their brow. Others simply sat by the dying embers of the hearth, watching shadows stretch and sway against walls, listening to the hum of insects outside. The night felt alive in a way winter and spring never could, vibrant, warm, and teeming with subtle movement. Children often found sleep elusive. They moved, whispered, and shifted in their beds, restless with energy. Parents attended to them with gentle care, rocking them or carrying them to cooler areas, repeating soft lullabies and prayers. Even in these restless nights, there was a rhythm, a gentle, repeated cycle of attention, comfort, and return to rest. In the monastery, monks adjusted their own rhythms. The long days allowed extended work in the gardens, tending herbs, vegetables, and flowers. The nights were warm, candles burned longer, and sleep came with lighter steps, interrupted by gentle watchfulness or quiet prayers. Their dreams were filled with light and motion, mirroring the energy of summer and the vibrant cycle of life around them. Despite the restless nature of summer nights, the villagers adapted. Blankets were removed or folded, floors swept for cool spots, and cool water poured for relief. Rituals of sleep remained, though slightly altered. Prayers whispered softly, herbs placed near pillows, small charms left by windows. The rhythm of night persisted, flexible and responsive, guided by nature's pulse rather than rigid rules. Dreams were influenced by the season. Vivid and active, they often carried images of work in the fields, flowing rivers, swaying trees, and animals in motion. Summer dreams were less about rest and more about movement, stories of growth, abundance, and the vibrant life surrounding the villagers. Even fears, subtle or shadowed, were softened by the warmth, absorbed into a landscape of light, air, and life. As dawn approached, the coolness of early morning began to return. The first light illuminated rooftops, fields, and gardens, casting long golden stripes across the village. Sleep gradually ebbed, and the villagers rose, still carrying traces of the restless night in body and mind. The day's work awaited, but they moved with familiarity, attuned to the natural rhythm that had guided them through countless summers. Summer nights taught endurance and awareness. Sleep was lighter, movement within rest more frequent, and dreams more vivid. And yet, even in restlessness, there was harmony, a quiet understanding of the rhythm of night and day of life and work, of warmth and cooling. The villagers learned to adapt, to embrace the ebb and flow of heat and light, and to find peace even in the restless, vibrant nights of summer. Autumn arrived softly, with cooler winds, golden light, and the quiet rustle of falling leaves. In the medieval village, the rhythm of life shifted once more. Days shortened, evenings grew crisp, and the villagers felt the gentle tug of night earlier than in summer. Sleep returned to its earlier schedule, a familiar companion now welcomed the cool embrace of the season. The air smelled of damp earth, fallen leaves, and wood smoke from freshly tended fires. Windows were closed against the chill, doors fastened carefully, and blankets thickened once again. Children moved more slowly in their beds, snug under layers of wool, their dreams quieter than the vivid flights of summer, filled with images of harvests, golden fields, and the soft fading of daylight. The first sleep arrived early, often shortly after the evening meal. The long daylight hours of summer were gone, and darkness encouraged surrender to rest. Bodies, weary from labor in the fields, or from gathering wood and preparing homes for the coming winter, sank into warmth with relief. Even the restless souls of children and young adults were tempered by the season's quiet authority, and dreams carried the gentle calm of preparation and reflection. During the middle of the night, the brief waking period returned. Villagers rose to stoke fires, sip warm water, whisper prayers, or adjust blankets and bedding. The rhythm of these hours was slow and measured, a gentle acknowledgement of the stillness outside and the protection offered by warmth inside. Even brief wakefulness became a time for reflection, for listening to the wind through trees, or for the distant sound of animals settling in their pens. Adults and elders felt the change deeply. Farmers and laborers, having harvested and stored the crops, moved with deliberate care, conserving energy for the long nights ahead. Monks in monasteries followed their canonical hours, their prayers soft and steady, blending with the quiet sounds of the autumn night. Sleep, though lighter than winter slumber, carried a calm rhythm, steady and reliable, as the village adjusted naturally to the turning of the season. Autumn rituals intertwined with sleep. Windows were secured against drafts. Fires were tended to burn longer through the night. Herbs were gathered and placed near beds to encourage protection and rest. Even small charms or crosses were adjusted, their placement guided by old traditions and careful repetition. These rituals offered comfort, a quiet assurance that night and rest would remain safe, even as the days grew shorter. Dreams in autumn were reflective. They often recalled the abundance of summer, the labor of harvest and the preparation for winter. Visions were slower, measured, and filled with both satisfaction and anticipation. Even shadows or fears, once vivid in summer, were softened, absorbed into the quiet rhythm of the long nights and the gentle warmth of the fire lit homes. The village itself adapted seamlessly. Streets grew quieter as dusk arrived earlier. Animals settled sooner into pens and barns. Children and adults alike moved with the knowledge that rest would come sooner and longer. Life slowed, in harmony with the shortening days, the cooling air, and the quiet reflection that autumn brought. By dawn, the rhythm of sleep had gently guided the villagers through the night. The first light illuminated frost, touched leaves, and the mist rising from fields and streams. The calm of the night lingered, and the villagers rose slowly, bodies and minds rested, ready to face the day. Autumn nights had returned the gift of early sleep, a rhythm that prepared them for the long hours of work, reflection, and life in the season ahead. In autumn, sleep was not just restoration, it was alignment with the earth, the sky, and the steady, enduring pulse of life. Night and day, labor and rest, dreams and wakefulness, all moved together in delicate harmony. And as the villagers lay down each evening, the rhythm of autumn guided them gently into the calm embrace of early sleep, carrying them through the night and into the promise of a new day. Through the turning of seasons, through the slow march of years, one truth remained constant in the medieval village: the eternal cycle of night and day. Sleep and wakefulness were threads woven into the fabric of life, guiding the villagers with gentle authority, shaping their bodies, minds, and hearts. Each night arrived carrying dreams, rest, and reflection. Each day followed, bringing labor, light, and renewed energy. The villagers lived in harmony with this cycle. The sun rose and set with predictable grace, marking the passage of time more reliably than any clock. Each sunrise awakened the world slowly, with soft light spilling over fields, rivers, and rooftops. Birds heralded the morning, streams gurgled with returning warmth, and the wind shifted with the faint scent of earth and vegetation. In response, the villagers rose, bodies and minds attuned to the gentle rhythm of nature, prepared for work and the unfolding of daily life. Night followed inevitably. The sun dipped below the horizon, darkness stretching across fields, forests, and streets. Fires were lit in hearths, blankets arranged for warmth, and sleep embraced as a sacred, necessary companion. The first sleep came with relief, a surrender to calm and rest. Dreams followed, soft and vivid, carrying visions of life, labor, and imagination, blending reality and the quiet world of the mind. The middle of the night, the second sleep, or the brief waking offered reflection and quiet care. Some rose to stoke fires, others whispered prayers, some simply sat in stillness, listening to the wind and the animals. These hours, though brief, were integral to the cycle: a pause, a moment to breathe, to attend to both body and soul before returning to sleep once more. The cycle repeated daily, molded by seasons and labor. Summer brought long days, restless sleep, and vivid dreams. Winter brought deep slumber, long nights, and dreams of warmth and comfort. Spring encouraged renewal, lighter sleep, and dreams of growth. Autumn returned the early night, reflective sleep, and preparation for colder months. Each season shifted the rhythm, but the cycle of night and day endured, constant and unchanging in its quiet authority. In the cottages, in the fields, in monasteries and barns, this cycle shaped every life. Children learned it instinctively, rising with the sun, resting when darkness fell. Adults organized work and chores according to the rhythm, pausing for meals and rest in harmony with light and shadow. Even animals seemed to follow the pattern, waking, feeding, resting, and sleeping in tandem with their human companions and the cycles of the natural world. The villagers respected the cycle. Sleep was never hurried, never forced. Work was not rushed beyond reason. Each action followed the pulse of day and night, guided by experience, observation, and the quiet wisdom passed down through generations. This respect created harmony, a sense of continuity, and a deep connection with the land, the sky, and the unseen rhythms that governed life. Dreams, too, reflected the eternal cycle. In each season they adapted, flowing with night, labor, and rest. Some dreams were playful, vivid, and bright. Others were solemn, reflective, or imbued with quiet fear. All were part of the ongoing dialogue between the waking and sleeping worlds, a bridge connecting the villagers to the mysteries and patterns of existence. Through decades, villagers moved through this cycle countless times. Births and deaths, harvests and festivals, cold and heat, all were experienced within the framework of night and day, rest and labor. The eternal rhythm was a quiet teacher, shaping not only sleep but also life, guiding hearts, minds, and bodies with soft, patient consistency. And so night and day continued in an unbroken, gentle loop. Sleep came carrying dreams, reflection, and calm. Wakefulness followed, bringing work, movement, and life. The villagers in their cottages, barns, and monasteries moved with it, learning patience, endurance, and harmony. Each night returned, each day unfolded, and the eternal cycle carried all, quietly, faithfully through the years and the seasons, a rhythm that was as old as the stars, as steady as the sun, and as intimate as the breath of every sleeping child, parent, and elder in medieval village.